Cerne Abbas giant is Britain's largest and the best known hill chalk figure in the world. He goes by many names, including the Rude Man, Rude Giant, Old Man, or simply the Giant. According to Victoria magazines, local people also refer to him as Hellis and Helly, although the giant himself doesn't mind just being called Sir. He stands around 180 feet high and 167 feet wide, or 144 feet without the club. This is around the size of a 20-storey apartment building in the UK. His club alone is 120 feet in length, and his other club is around 36 feet long. This is known as Britain's most famous phallus. It's also one of the most famous penises in the world. When the giant is scaled down to human size, his erection is 10 inches long. The giant's origins are unknown, and its historic accounts have perplexed archaeologists and historians throughout the generations. Folklore still surrounds the giant to this date, and many believe it. There may be a reference to the giant in medieval times. You see, there's an account of the hill before it was named Trendle Hill. In medieval times, this hill was seemingly referred to as the hill in which the giant is located, although they never mention the giant itself, so they could have been referring to something else. The hill was named Trendle Hill in the 1600s. And there was probably an abbey at the top of this hill. In Tudor times they talk of the hill and of the maypole dancing that happened at the top of it. However, there is no mention of a giant, but some suggest that it may have just been overgrown in Tudor times. Proper surveys of the hill were done in 1540 and 1617. These surveys were conducted by the respected John Norden. However, there is no mention of the giant when depicting Trendle Hill. This is strange, as John Norden's surveys are normally very detailed. This is stranger still, as there's evidence of the Uffington White Horse as far back as the 11th century. It's highly unlikely that John Norden would have ignored the giant's existence. The earliest written record of the giant dates to 1694, when St Mary's Church was charged 3 shillings for, and I quote, repairing ye giant. The first observations of the giant were recorded by the Bishop of Bristol, Francis Wise, and William Stukeley in the early 18th century, proving that at this time the giant was on full display. It's highly strange that if the giant is indeed ancient, other observations do not exist. This lends evidence to the giant being a newer creation than we had originally thought. By 1763, the giant was a mainstream sight. It's described in magazines across the whole of the British Isles. Over time, the giant became neglected and overgrown, until its owner, Horace Pitt Rivers, the 6th Baron of the Rivers, ordered the giant repaired in 1868. In his instructions he noted, and I quote, as near possible to its original condition. This being said, absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. Stonehenge, for example, was first recorded in 1130, but no one credible would suggest that it isn't older. The discrepancies in the historical accounts is what adds to the giant's fame and uniqueness, and some hope that the giant's origins are never found out. 2020 and 2021, some amazing new discoveries were made about the giant, conducted by the archaeologists Martin Papworth and Mike Allen. They found 2 species of snails under the giant which came from France and were brought over during the medieval period. This proves that the giant is unlikely to be from the prehistoric or Roman Britain period, but from the medieval period at the earliest. They also took dirt samples from underneath the giant. They believe that the deepest samples of construction were from the date range 700 AD to 1100 AD, thus proving that the giant was constructed somewhere between these dates. The most popular theory before the 2020 discoveries was that the giant was cut in the 1700s during the Civil War. The theory goes that the giant was created by Denzil Holles as a parody of Oliver Cromwell. Lord Holles at the time was the owner of the Cerne Abbas estate. This is because of a known rivalry between Denzil Holles and Oliver Cromwell. Denzil Holles, or Denzil Holses, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his name right, was one of the 11 members after the First English Civil War that led forces against Cromwell. Depicting Cromwell in this light may seem childish and a waste of time to us. However, Cromwell was a known Puritan and would therefore find this action very insulting. While the National Trust and the most accepted theory based on evidence suggests that the giant could have been created during Anglo-Saxon times, and that the giant was forgotten about on and off, most probably because he was overgrown, before Holles renovated the giant and could have possibly added a penis to mock Cromwell, and thus combining the most credible theories. Local legend is that the giant used to steal sheep in the Blackmore Vale. One day, the people found the giant sleeping on the hill, and killed him. They then proceeded to draw a line around the giant, which is what we see now. Another legend that ties into this is that the giant came from Denmark with the Vikings, and that the giant actually led an invasion of England from the coast. Some people say that the chalk figure sometimes rises from the dead on dark nights and quenches his thirst in the stream below. But also, since Victorian times, the giant has also been said to help childlessness and bless women with improved fertility. Women in the surrounding towns and villages had an average of 3 children each in 2010. According to some outlets, this was the highest rate in the whole country, although I couldn't find any proof of this. The giant could inspire fertility in these women just because of the heritage of the area. According to this folklore, a woman who sleeps on the figure is blessed with fecundity, which is the ability to produce offspring. It's also said that if a couple makes love on the giant, it cures infertility, especially if done on the phallus. John Udall had a huge interest in Dorsetshire folklore. He stated that a man and a woman who wanted to resolve this issue must actually have sexual connection on the spot to have the full effect of a charm. Modern witches still push these traditions and take couples up onto the hill to help them conceive. Kevin Carlyon, a famous British white witch, claims a 90% success rate. Kevin Carlyon and many other witches believe that there are certain spots in the earth that hold special energy inside, and that this energy can be used to influence our lives using spells and charms. One of the most popular spots for witches to promote fertility power is the giant, with so many people having sex on the spot that certain parts of it are actually eroding. Some nights the giant can get quite busy, with many couples visiting at night. Cerne Abbas is also a hot spot for couples who are having trouble conceiving children. English Heritage and the Cerne Valley Parish Council don't approve of these actions. They've written letters to the witches to ask them to cut down on this behaviour, although others argue that it should be allowed due to either heritage of the site or even that the magic works. For 1960s, May Day has been marked in Cerne Abbas by a team of Morris dancers called the Wessex Morris Men. The events draw hundreds of villagers and it sometimes makes its way onto the giant. After the Morris dancing, locals head to the local pubs for a pint and an English breakfast. Cerne Abbas Brewery also has a strong connection with the giant. There is now a slight rift between the locals and the National Trust. Carveen, a co-owner of the Cerne Abbas Brewery, stated that the National Trust don't own him. He's been around longer than they've existed. Every time the brewery develops a new beer, the brewers climb the hill at night with friends and pour some of the new beer into the giant's mouth. Quoting Vic Carveen, "I'm very much mindful and respectful of him. He's our giant. You look after him and he'll look after you. Don't upset him because he'll come off the hill and eat all the children." Be sure to check out my other channel, History Sticks, for the complete, longer and comprehensive video.